Welcome to another cabin review. Today we are checking out Virgin Atlantic Premium or Premium Economy on their A330-300. You might be asking yourself, didn't you just do a Virgin Premium Economy cabin review? And yes, it's fair to say the last cabin review we did on this channel was Premium Economy on their A350. But you see, there's a very good reason why we're also reviewing this specific plane. You see, Virgin keeps a relatively young fleet, which is very good in terms of the physical planes themselves. Great fuel efficiency, great for cabin noise, all those sorts of improvements that you get with modern new planes. What it does mean is they never really refresh their cabins. All they kind of do is make a new cabin when they buy new planes. So unlike other airlines that might go through a cabin refresh cycle, Virgin don't really do that. They just wait until they have new planes with the new cabin. And the result is, if you're unlucky on which plane that you get, you can actually end up on some pretty dated cabins. Take, for example, today's A330-343, which is now about 14 years old. And if you compare that to the A350 we flew on previously, which was only 5 years old, you can understand that maybe there's going to be quite a big difference. And in fact, again, there's another difference if you're lucky enough to get on one of the brand new A330 Neos. Each one has a very different cabin. And this is definitely more noticeable in, I would say, Premium, and then even more noticeable again in First. In fact, if you're flying Virgin in First, you can end up with either being in something that I would very much describe as a coffin, or actually a very nice business/first product. So it really is a big gamble. Not so much of an issue in economy, but even there, you're going to feel the differences in terms of the screen and maybe kind of the comfort of the seat as well. Before we go any further, the most important message of this video is definitely that if you can, avoid flying on one of Virgin Atlantic's old A330s, not to be confused with the A330 Neos, but these older planes are now some of the oldest in their fleet and are definitely showing their age. But let's get into it, let's see why, and you can decide for yourself if it's actually really that big of an issue. Before we started boarding, there was already going to be an issue. I knew this a few days ahead of time. You see, in this plane, in this configuration, Premium is in a 232 layout, which in itself is quite a good thing. It means, in theory, there's more space for each seat. If you consider that the A350 has a 242 configuration, it just feels smaller in this regard, and there's less people in the cabin, which is a nice thing. But there is an issue. And the issue is that specifically on aisle 21, seats at the window sides do not have a window. This window is missing to allow for stuff, wiring, and that sort of thing in the plane. So yeah, you have the decision, unfortunately, of if you end up with those seats, you're not actually going to have a window seat. And of course, Virgin doesn't actually make that clear. Now, we knew this, but they were the only two seats left, specifically seats 21H and 21K. So we decided to go with that. I was flying with my wife, and we decided that it was better to have a two than have to sit next to a stranger. And this was a very full cabin, so you know, that was going to happen if that was the case. If you want a window, you're going to have to avoid this row. It is slightly frustrating and very annoying that Virgin doesn't point this out. So as we're coming into the cabin, I think a fair description is to say that it is looking tired. The seats are pretty worn. The lighting isn't great in here either. I do apologize that throughout this video. It is a night flight, so it's not going to be the best. But it's definitely not the best in here. It's not crazy bad. I've seen worse in Premium Economy, but it's not the kind of quality that Virgin wants you to associate with their name. And now we're seated. Let's have a quick look at the screen itself. It's okay. It's on the smaller side. It's definitely feeling dated. And the remote well, that had crashed and was displaying this kind of screen throughout the whole flight, which was great. And below the screen, we have some AV ports as well. Is anyone in need of an iPod connector in 2025? I'm not so sure they are. The USB port on the left-hand side was also broken. The central part of the USB was just missing. The one on the right was working for power. This seemed like it was a later addition. So they had done some work to this seats, even if minimal. Another issue with this being an older plane and an older configuration is that the headphone jack is in the armrest. Well, I'm not a small person, as that's probably obviously clear. And what that does mean is that there's no chance of me actually being able to plug a plug in here and have leg space. And frankly, even someone much smaller than me is going to just end up having a plug jammed into their leg for the whole trip, which is just a terrible design, and I don't really know why this was ever a good idea. As soon as we started having screens in the back of the seat, that's where the headphone jack should have been, if you ask me. Didn't particularly bother me too much. I was sticking to my iPad for content anyway. But nonetheless, if you wanted to use the in-flight system, that was very annoying. Then having a look at the menu for the food. Again, it's nice to have a physical menu in premium. It's proof that Virgin is trying to keep their service alive. No matter the plane itself, they are trying to keep it up. And of course, look out of our windowless sign, so no takeoff or landing videos today. We were quickly served a pre-takeoff drink, which was nice. Again, very nice touch in premium economy, so happy to see that here. We had an amenities kit, which you only get with Virgin if you're flying a night flight, and I mean, it's fine. There's some socks, an eye mask, toothpaste, basic stuff. Not really sure anyone's actually using this, but there you go. Having another look at the entertainment system, it is very slow. I did say this about the A350 as well, but I do feel like Virgin are really cutting back on what content is actually available on this system. I guess because more and more people are using things like iPads and bringing their own content on planes, maybe it's just not such a worthwhile expense anymore. But it is a shame that, yeah, if you want to use this, you're going to find that there is less and less content, at least on Virgin. So far, I've seen that British Airways still does a pretty good job in this regard. Today's flight was due to take about 8 hours, which was pretty spot on for actually what it ended up taking. Taking a look at the table, it comes out of the armrest, and again, if you're someone on the larger side, it's not going to give you a massive amount of room. Considering the amount of space you do have between the tray table and the seat in front of you, it would be nice to see more movement space here. But again, it's an older design, and it was functional. It was fine. It worked. Then the legroom itself, it was okay. Nothing exceptional for premium economy, but it was fine. It was certainly an upgrade from economy. As soon as you start putting stuff in your seat back pocket, though, you're going to start losing that space quite significantly. Once we were up in the air, drinks and snack service was kind of served very quickly. And again, as always, these were lovely, very tasty, good range of snacks, good range of drinks as well. Can't fault it there. Then with the main meal, I do always find that when I'm leaving the US, and this was a flight out of Orlando, the food is always worse than when we're leaving the UK. What do you think? I went with the pork stew and it was okay. My wife had the pasta, which honestly tasted way better than it looked and was definitely the winning dish here. And then not long after the meal, the cabin lights were turned off. I'm really not a fan of night flights. I don't sleep well on flights, and that was made worse by the fact that there was a nice bright shining light from the broken controller, and it looked like actually a lot, if not all of them, in this cabin were broken and were displaying something similar. So great. Quick loo review here. It's fine. Again, it's nothing special. It's no upgrade from economy in the toilet department. It's fine. We did have our own toilets at least, which was nice. So that's a plus. So with everyone starting to sort of recline and stretch out, these seats do give you a lot of angle to recline, which was quite nice. However, the problem with that is because there is so much recline and these seats are particularly bulky, you really take away all of the legroom of the person behind you, which again, I am a big advocate here. If a seat reclines, you have every right to use it. There was no problem with that. It's just an unfortunate design of the seat itself. I don't think it needed to recline quite so much. or at least the bulkiness of the seat was kind of hindering that. I think you could have had the same amount of recline for less space consumed. And again, you see that is to be true on newer, more modern seats. I tried my best to get some sleep. Didn't do very well. Watched some films on my iPad and that sort of thing. And then about an hour and 20 minutes left of the flight, the lights were turned back on and breakfast service started. My wife had the French toast, which was quite nice actually. It was a good option. And I went for the cooked breakfast, and I very much wish I hadn't. I wasn't hungry in the slightest, to be honest, so I wanted to just see what it was going to be like. And it certainly didn't help my appetite, let's put it that way. So there we go, whistle stop tour. Of course, unfortunately, because it was a night flight, didn't get as much content covered, but I hope that gives you a good idea of the cabin anyway. And I don't want this review to be completely negative. It definitely was a bad experience, there's no two ways about it. You know, the staff, the crew, absolutely brilliant. They continue to be incredibly helpful, kind, great people, and I can't fault that at all. You know, there was actually some decent food options. My wife won both times, I think, in that regard. So, you know, if you know what you're looking for, it was pretty good. Hopefully, if you do take a look at my A350 review, just how much of a difference the seat can be when essentially you're going to be paying the same price. It's the same service that they're offering, but it is just such a lottery. So my final kind of review, if you like, of this is to just be careful. Try, if you can, if you have the option, to book flights that use more modern planes. And if you do end up on the A330, not to be confused with the A330neo, I feel your pain. And hopefully these planes will be retired soon. I know essentially the neos are coming in to replace them. So this shouldn't be a problem for much longer, but the cycle's just going to continue. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please do make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And I'll see you again very, very soon for another one. Bye for now.